Welcome back to the fire, and also welcome to part 1 of my narration of the D&D adventure module Icewind Rime of the Frostmaiden. This is by far the largest project I've ever taken on YouTube, so what I'll likely do is release it into parts, and then when we get towards the end, I'll release one gigantic video containing the full narration. And just to give you guys a little bit of scope, this project will likely take a couple months to full completion. Before we get started, I want to give a special thank you to channel members and patrons. This type of content's not really as friendly towards the YouTube algorithm, and it also takes just a lot more time than other types of content. So a big thank you to you guys. I really do appreciate it. And any of you guys that missed my previous narration of Descent into Avernus, I'll leave a link to that below. Without further ado, sit back, relax, enjoy the fire, and follow me on a journey to the Forgotten Realms. Your adventure takes place in 1489 Dal Reckoning, north of the spine of the world in an icy land of windswept tundra called Icewind Dale. This harsh environment is filled with horrific, unimaginable creatures of the cold, and is home to only the most hardened of frontiersmen, pioneers, and barbarians. The few that dare venture here are oftentimes seeking a second chance in life in hopes of leaving their former lives completely behind. But you and your party are here with a clear purpose, and that is to investigate the current crisis going on that has been detrimental to your father's scrimshaw business back south in the city of Sales, Luskan. Your father is an artisan who crafts primarily from scrimshaw, which are the ivory bones found in knucklehead trout. The knucklehead trout can only be found in the icy lakes of Icewind Dale to the north. The few mercantile ships that your father owns can no longer sail to Ten Towns, which are the frontier villages, for most of the waters in the Dale have frozen over, and endless blinding blizzards have made it impossible to even attempt to make the journey. Your father's business is crucial to your family's livelihood, and you committed to making the perilous journey on land to the lake town of Bremen, where your father has a fishing deal with the speaker of the town. Hopefully here you can get some answers and perhaps find a solution, for the failure of your father's business carries with it certain death for your entire family. If he's not able to continue paying off his outstanding debt to the Black Network, financial ruin will be the least of your worries. What you end up discovering, though, is far, far beyond anything you could have ever possibly imagined. And you know that if you do live to tell this tale, it'll be a story to be told for centuries to come in the Forgotten Realms. 3 weeks prior, on a cold, crisp morning in the month of the melting, you, your sister Shayla, your brother Sigrid, and a local dwarven ranger by the name of Falamore Flynn gather at the Cutlass Tavern for one final toast of your warm mugs of coffee, while one particular party member is drinking something else. You all know very well that this may just be the last bit of warmth you experience for a very, very long time. Falamore Flynn, also known as Whiskey, as he carries a large flask in the shape of a bear's head on his belt, has been friends with your father since before you took your first steps on Faerun. Whiskey is a ranger of the wilds, and is hardly ever seen without his bear companion named Burr. The folks of Luskan oftentimes would hire Whiskey to carry out business that involves the harsh lands to the north, for he spent over a century of his life in that region. No one in Luskan knows the lands to the north better than him. The Cutlass is unusually packed this morning, as pirates, merchants, and even a few nobles filter in to offer you and your party various items to help with the upcoming perilous journey. Your father's business is not the only one affected by the mysterious events happening to the north in Ten Towns, and most are dying to know what is going on but not willing to make the journey themselves. One such noble, a rather mysterious fellow, offers your party teams of sled dogs in exchange for delivering a magically sealed letter to the innkeeper of a town called Bryn Shander. Not thinking much of it and excited to have sled dogs make the first half of the journey tremendously easier, you take the letter and slip it into your pack. After a final toast, Whiskey leads the way out of the cutlass, calls Burr to his side, causing some screams from the townsfolk, and you and your party head out on dog sleds to begin the perilous 160-plus mile journey to the true north. Just over a week later, after unfortunately suffering the loss of a few of the sled dogs, you arrive in the town of Hundlestone. Hundlestone is located on the edge of the spine of the world, and it lies along Ten Trail, which is the road you'll be taking through the mountain pass to get to 10 towns. Hundlestone is a trade town of around 1,200 residents comprised mostly of dwarves, gnomes, and humans. And in this town, the buildings are built low to the ground, with the majority of living space consisting of cellar rooms cut into the rock. The journey to get here was much harsher than ever before, especially considering that this is the month of the melting, and the hardest part of the journey through the mountain pass is still looming ahead. The measly 5 guest houses in the town are completely empty, which is very unusual for this time of the year. After Whiskey talks to a few of the local dwarves at the tavern, he learns a bit about the mysterious ongoing events. And after taking a quick swig of his flask, Whiskey says, "Friends, this will be the last full sun in the sky that we'll see for a good while now. Grab a drink while you can." Whiskey then passes his dirty flask over to Shayla, who tips the flask back, but you notice it never touches her lips. Whiskey goes on to explain that each night before midnight, a mysterious shimmering curtain of light has been illuminating the night sky past the mountain pass, where 10 Towns is located. And as beautiful as this aurora is, it is equally as deadly, as it prevents the next day's sun from rising above the horizon. With no sunlight and warmth to melt the snow and ice, and extreme blizzards blocking the mountain pass, Icewind Dale has seemingly been trapped in a different reality from the rest of the world, a never-ending winter's embrace. This has been going on for over 6 months now and is showing no signs of letting up. Whiskey then tosses a few coins at a group of gnomes sitting by at a nearby stone table that has been crafted inside of the rock wall of the small tavern. The gnomes quickly get up, run over to your table, and begin examining your feet studiously. Moments later, they disappear into a back room for about an hour or so, only to come back with what appears to be specially crafted snowshoes. But you do notice that they give your group 2 extra pairs that are quite a bit larger than the others. The sled dogs will no longer be able to proceed any further due to the weather conditions of the mountain pass. It'll be now time to go on foot. Later that night, in your chilly, rather damp guest house, you savor the taste of some fried spiced hare soup that one of the gnomes who made the snowshoes brought to your door. As enjoyable as the meal is, you can't help but notice feelings of hopelessness creeping into your body. Whatever is causing this catastrophe will likely be far beyond your power and control, but you have no choice. You must press on as your family's life quite literally depends on it. The next morning, you're awakened by a loud growl, followed by 3 obnoxious knocks on the wooden door to your guest house. Opening the door, you see Whiskey, fully suited in warm furs, with his oversized bow strapped to his back. He appears ready to go as he is mounted on the back of Burr. You also notice that Burr has custom snowshoes strapped onto his large bear paws, and you can't help but let out a slight chuckle. The gnomes of this town are quite creative. Packing up what supplies you have, you load them onto one of the dog sleds that is now going to be pulled by Burr. The time has come to set off into the dark, cold mountain pass and find out what is causing 10 Towns to be further isolated from the world. Through unimaginable blizzards and snow standing taller than a frost giant's chair, your party makes it through the extremely harsh mountain pass. You are now standing in what appears to be an open tundra, cast in a greenish-blue light from the exotic curtain of colors displayed in the star-filled night sky above. This is perhaps one of the most beautiful sights you've ever seen, but you quickly remind yourself that beauty can many times be deceitful bait with a deadly hook. The temperature in this area must be around minus 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which honestly feels like summer compared to the mountain pass. This was a trek that could have just as easily turned into an early grave for all your party, and that still very well may end up being the case. With quite a bit of luck accompanied with Whiskey's knowledge and confidence in the route, everyone has survived, but there was one enemy that could not be stopped. Your brother Sigrid has suffered severe frostbite on his left foot, and over the last night it has spread from his toes to his ankle and into his leg. A simple restoration spell will not cure this. With no choice but to press on, Whiskey offers Sigrid a ride on the back of Burr, as Burr will be able to travel at a much higher pace on his own and hopefully make it to Bryn Shander in half the time as it would take the full party. Feeling the cold air start to thicken, you look up and notice a white sheet of snow in the distance moving rapidly towards your party. There's a blizzard coming, and if Sigrid doesn't get the help he needs soon, he will surely die. Placing one hand behind Sigrid's head, you press your forehead into his, and then watch as Burr speeds off down the barely visible road of Tentrail. As your brother and the bear disappear into the rapidly approaching sheet of white, you don your winter hood once again and prepare for the excruciating pain of the cold. Only minutes later, you hear a loud, monstrous cry in the distance, followed by a shriek which sounds as if it came from Burr. Now sprinting down the road directly into the blizzard, weapons drawn, you see a faint outline of a gigantic creature standing at what has to be at least 20 feet tall with large horns on its head. It's a Yeti, and it's going after Burr and Sigrid. Before you could even look back, an arrow buzzes past your ear, and you watch as it flies through the cold air right into the back of the Yeti's neck. An immense display of skill from Whiskey, as the raging winds make most shots at this distance almost impossible. The large creature reaches behind its head and rips the arrow out, and then turns around facing towards you and Whiskey, letting out a shattering angry roar. You now notice that Shayla is nowhere to be found. Right as the Yeti begins its charge at you and Whiskey, Burr comes bursting out of the snow, digging his sharp claws deep into the Yeti's calf muscles. Then Shayla appears out of nowhere, and in a great display of agility, she climbs up the entire Yeti's body and begins stabbing rapidly into its neck with her dual blades. Kicking Burr to the side, the Yeti then manages to grab Shayla off its shoulders. Fearing that the Yeti may rip her to pieces right in front of your very own eyes, you charge in and slash your sword across its right kneecap. The Yeti roars and hurls Shayla far out into the distant snow. Whiskey then yells for you to fall back as he fires a volley of arrows, turning the Yeti into a pincushion. The Yeti still manages to charge at you though, despite the arrows, and in its path it completely destroys the sled holding all of the supplies. Sword at the ready, you start to accept what seems to be a grim fate, as exhaustion from the trip is overpowering your adrenaline. Just as the Yeti rears back to strike at you with its deadly claws, 3 dwarves come charging out of the thick white, letting out powerful battle cries that a smart Yeti would be fearful of. You notice that one of the dwarves has a foaming mug emblazoned on the front of his shield. The 2 dwarves carrying great axes start chopping at the Yeti's Achilles tendon, and the dwarf with the shield rolls to the front, smashing his hammer into the Yeti's bloody right kneecap. The Yeti falls to its knees and you rush forward to help. At this point, Whiskey has already pierced the Yeti's eyes with 2 well-placed shots directly through its pupils. You and the dwarves hack away as the Yeti screams in agony. It seems as if you may actually survive this day. After the Yeti is completely silenced, the 3 dwarves don't say a word, but instead wave at you to follow them. They bring you to a clearing on the ground where Sigrid is lying in what appears to be an unconscious state. Looking to the right of him, to your horror, you see a lone limb lying on the ground. Sigrid's frostbitten leg must have been ripped right off, and he now appears to be on the brink of death. One of the dwarves kneels down and casts a minor healing spell, and you watch as Sigrid's breathing returns to a more normalized state, but this can't last for long. Whiskey then says a few words to one of the dwarves, quickly throws Sigrid's body over the back of Burr, and once again Burr speeds off down the road towards Bryn Shander. Moments later, to your relief, one of the other dwarves appears with Shayla limping by his side. She is alive and in decent condition, as the snow must have eased her crash landing. "Quickly, follow us!" the dwarf with the mug on his shield firmly states. Looking back, you see the supply sled broken into several pieces, and supplies are missing and scattered all over. After grabbing what you can, you, Whiskey, and Shayla head down the road in pursuit of the three dwarves. You haven't even made it to 10 Towns yet, and look at all that has transpired. Will Sigrid survive, or will this be the start of many deaths to come?